Over Your Dead Bodies, a 2026 American thriller directed by Jorma Taccone and stars Jason Segel, Samara Weaving, Timothy Olyphant, Keith Jardine, and Juliette Lewis. The plot follows a couple in a struggling relationship taking a weekend to a cabin for some alone time, while they both have a secret plan to murder the other. It's a dark, daring plot, and I actually love it. It's also a remake of the 2021 Norwegian film The Trip, and I actually didn't know that until even after I saw the trailer. So if it weren't for a comment on my trailer video for this movie, I probably wouldn't have known. Who knows when? I probably would have figured it out eventually, but who knows when. So I did go into this pretty blind, pretty much off the strength of the trailer and the cast. I'm not as familiar with Samara Weaving as some of you. I know people just love her, but I'm getting there. I've reviewed Ready or Not 2 not too long ago. I reviewed Azrael, I don't know, a couple of months ago. So I guess I'm getting there. So far, though, this is probably my favorite performance from her. And as far as Jason Segel goes, I've kind of always liked him. I've watched I'm pretty sure I've watched his entire career so far, and he just seems like my type of dude. He's gotten pretty versatile, at this point. Obviously, he's known for being funny, which is kind of his bread and butter, but he's also a very solid, serious actor, and you get both of those from him here, because there's a lot of comedic elements at play. The entire cast is really good. I think the story is good. It's lean and mean. I labeled this movie as a thriller, but you could easily call this like a dark comedy, and I wouldn't argue with you. So the beginning shows Dan and Lisa, played by Jason Segel and Samara Weaving. They're headed to a family cabin for the weekend, and it's a perfect, scene to kick off a story like this. The writing here is just super solid, and I can really feel the frustration of a couple, who have been drifting apart for years, in a way that only someone who has been there, I think, could feel that. And you can feel the fact that at one point really cared for each other, and maybe they still do. And during the car ride, you learn a lot about them. Again, solid writing. This is a great way to set stuff up. Like, Dan is kind of a failed film director. He did one movie years ago that was decent, but now he does like commercials and stuff like that. And Lisa is an actress. And I appreciated all the character development. You know how I like it. So if you know anything about this movie going in, anything at all, anything that's interested you or stuck with you, it's that Dan and Lisa have both planned to kill each other. And I guess I expected a very small, contained story. And it is almost the whole thing takes place at this cabin. But what I didn't expect was, the other characters. Because this whole time, in the attic are two escaped convicts played by Timothy Olyphant and Keith Jardine, and a rogue federal officer played by Juliette Lewis. I like a character-driven movie, so this was perfect. Not to mention they're all really good here. All the performances are top-notch. Adding villains to a movie where the leads are, highly flawed people, arguably villains themselves, to say the least, is kind of perfect for me. It's dark, it's kind of grimy, but I'm going to stop there as far as plot points are concerned. But while the story enters, familiar territory, and it does, it's a whole lot of fun, and it keeps you guessing until the very end, literally, until the end. This movie doesn't play things safe. The stakes are pretty high, and would you know it, I felt a slight attachment to Dan and Lisa, and I didn't want to see them hurt. And I say that because the three villains are all pretty violent and deranged. I'm almost reminded of, like, some of the villains from Con Air. Yeah, they're not as cartoony or as comic booky, but I still kind of got a little bit of those vibes. I do feel like this movie will please just about everyone into darker types of movies. This isn't horror, but it's violent and very gory. Enough to please, I think, the horror fans, because I loved it for some of those reasons. Really, it's more of an edgy, dark comedy action thriller. I think that is what you would call it. So it just blends all those genres, and it doesn't for a second feel bloated or unfocused or lazy. In fact, it pretty much achieves everything that it attempts. And there was never a moment here, I don't think, where I wasn't engaged or I was bored or something like that. Never for a second, I don't think. When it's funny, it's funny. When it's intense, it's intense. And again, like I said, it keeps you guessing right until the end. It's just rarely a predictable movie, and I think that's kind of hard to do in with movies like this. The acting is kind of as I alluded to, it's really good, and it's hard to choose a highlight. But honestly, I think Jason Segel is great here. If you liked him in like the Judd Apatow stuff, that made him famous, you'll get a little bit of that here, and it's also a very good serious performance from him, which we've seen him do before. But I think for me, it's been a while, so I think I might have kind of forgotten that he had that side to him. But let's not forget Timothy Olyphant, because he's another standout here, as he often is. And it's good to see him more lately. I feel like he's kind of been making a comeback. Maybe he never went away, but for me, he's been making a comeback. And he's just great here as kind of like the ringleader of this dangerous trio. He's got kind of like a sociopathic thing going on where he can be down to earth and charming, like a lot of villains or criminals, and the next minute he's just like a maniacal murdering maniac. Samara Weaving, though, Juliette Lewis, and Keith Jardine are all great too. So don't get me wrong, but it really is almost a perfect little movie. I really appreciated the boldness where a lot of writers would play it safe, and this movie really isn't for the easily offended. Trust me, it's I've used the word edgy a couple of times just for lack of a better description. It's edgy at times, so be prepared for that, I guess. So yeah, I'm giving Over Your Dead Body 3 out of 4 stars. I absolutely enjoyed it, and now I'm definitely going to be checking out Tommy Wirkola's original film. So, cheers, guys, and I'll see you at the multiplex.
Subscribe right now, please.